powerful weapon that you can use to poke from behind a shield, and that is also going to deal tremendous amounts of damage. That's my kind of weapon, that's my type of weapon. And the amazing thing about it is that it has lots of versatility because you can play with different Ashes of Wars right here. Although, however, that being said, there's a couple of them that are going to be better for us. More often than anything, we'll focus ourselves on fire damage. So what is it that this weapon can do? It can deal a filthy amount of damage while you're also poking from behind a shield, and it also has range, a medium type of range. Poking from behind a shield, the weapon is also going to be dealing tremendous amounts of damage, and once you manage to buff the weapon on its entirety on base game, it should reach from 12 to 1400 AR damage. Which, then again, for a poking weapon that you can use from behind a shield, it's just disgusting. I love this type of weapons, and the design of the weapon itself, it's actually quite nice. I like it quite a lot, and it resembles many of the weapons that you have out there, like this spiral of fire or element on the tip. This is a thrusting sword, a heavy thrusting sword, and that it looks like a spear. So it could also be like a spear with the moveset of a heavy thrusting sword. It's a weird weapon, but it's really cool looking. So let's talk about the stats of our Queelign's Flame, which is her weapon right here. You will notice that we don't really have the hard cap for our character right here, opposite to different type of builds that we have managed to make here on the channel. While the scaling of the weapon is amazing, remember that there's a soft cap at 60 and then a hard cap at 80. From 60 to 80, you start getting diminishing returns into your stat allocation, and then from 80 all the way to 99, it's just nearly to non-existent. And the thing is that for my testing, the weapon AR damage is going to reach a tremendous amount of damage of 700 AR at 60 faith. If you level it up a little bit further to reach the hard cap, it would be 720, so you're getting like 20 points into damage return for the weapon. Why would we want to reach 80 points into faith if it is the case that you do want to do such a thing? If you want to use incantations, because the spell scaling of the incantations, it's actually a little bit better from 60 to 80 when it comes to the higher scaling of the incantations. However, this is just purely a warrior that consequentially seems to be using Faith as a main scaling stat, and more of the buffing for our weapon to reach that high amount of the damage that I told you about. It's going to be coming precisely from buffing, from using different types of little things around here, and to increase the fire portion damage. But then again, 60 to 80, it's just 20 points in damage, not worth it. That leaves us room to have a little bit more stat allocation in different places, endurance, mind, to be able to spam our Ash of War that much better, and for us to be able to poke from behind a shield that much better. Vigor 60, which is the hard cap for Vigor, and then strength and dexterity, those are just requirements. So our weapon is a Queelign's Flame. It already has a base scaling, it's just a basic weapon, it's not a special weapon, so you don't really use Samba weapons to upgrade this thing. Which is interesting because it's one of the few weapons that actually does have scaling, native scaling, meaning that if you add scaling from the weapon itself, it's going to scale even better. That being said, that's why we have a B scaling on our weapon once we infuse it with that Ash of War, which we'll discuss later on. And then for the Mesmer Soldier Shield, it has a nice gap boost and it doesn't require that much strength, so that is why. The Seal, we don't really use anything specific. The only thing that I'm using spells for are going to be for buffing a character. If you want to use Mesmer incantations, for example, or fire-based incantations, for example, be my guest. You have more than enough faith to do so. So the armor, like always, just anything that would allow you to retain that 51 poise threshold without fat rolling. So here I just have like my fashion, and it doesn't have like that much poise. I'm missing a little bit more points in here. I'm leaning more into fashion rather than poise, but just be aware that you should have like that 51 poise threshold. There's 3 talismans that you are going to need as a must, and those are not interchangeable. So those are not concessions, you need to have these talismans. The Fire Scorpion Charm to increase your fire portion by 12%. The Godfrey Icon is going to, well actually this is interchangeable depending on which Ash of War would you like to be using. We'll talk about that in a little while, but this is going to increase your damage by 20%, and then the Shadow of Alexander, that's more 15% more damage. The final one, that is going to be the concession. There you can allocate any one of the talismans that you are seeing on the screen right now that you would want to use with this weapon. Now this is not a Fire Knight Ash weapon, so it doesn't get extra benefits from using the Fire Knight Ashes of War. However, you still want to use the Flame Art, because the Flame Art is going to give you the quality, the faith scaling right there. I like to use Flaming Strike because I think that it has a better stagger possibility and it actually attacks faster. But if you want to have something like a distance, you can by all means use Flame Spear as well. And if you want to deal a little bit more poise damage, then you have the Flame Skewer. It's just up to your personal preference to the Ash of War that you would like to use with this right here. Just make sure that you are imbuing your weapon with Flame Art, because that's what's going to increase the scaling of the weapon. If you, for example, on the other hand, use Fire, as you can see right here, Fire is going to have better scaling on strength, and it's going to lower your faith scaling right there. So don't use Fire, make sure that you use Flame Art, and you are going to need the Fireblade Whetstone for you to be able to do such a thing if you want to use, for example, the Flaming Strike. We have just two spells. Flame, grant me strength. Whenever you buff your weapon with your fire damage and you already have native fire damage, this is going to increase your damage by 20% physical damage and 20% fire damage, meaning that it's a flat 40% extra damage on your weapon just for existing. And then we have the Golden Vow, which is going to increase the damage of our weapon by 15%. On the mix of Wondrous Physique, you're going to need the Flame Shouting Crack tier, which is going to increase your fire damage by 20%. And then the other one, that's going to be the concession. Here, you can just use whichever crack tier that you would like to use. Stamina, Greenburst Crystal tier, Crimson tiers to increase the HP regeneration, the Bubble Crystal tier to upline Bubble tier. Anything really, it's not consequential. You can just play around with this slot right here, because the only thing that you're going to need as a must is going to be the Flame Shadow and Crack tier. This is the overall damage, extra damage that you have after buffing your character as a base damage attacks from your weapon. And also it's fire base, meaning it's one of the best damage types that you have in the entirety of the game. I can't stress enough how powerful this weapon is, because you have Ashes of War, you have access to Ashes of War that you can use to attack from a distance. You have filthy amounts of damage. This is one of the highest attribute scaling when it comes to buffing a weapon. For such a weapon that attacks so fast and attacks from behind a shield, it's just something so very powerful. I'm in love with this weapon, and I also think that the design is just chef's kiss, top notch. Anyways, if you like the content, like and the very super appreciated. And also you that you're a gorgeous and beautiful person, you're into the gorgeous and beautiful person. Subscribe to the channel, join the Discord, have a beautiful day. I'll be seeing you beautiful people in the next one. Have a lovely day, goodbye.